So hello and welcome. First of all, you know what life can be like. It gets in the way and it slows things down. Um, Between work, having two under twos, as wonderful as the boys are, they are a handful. So yeah, life can get a bit complicated and stuff. So it can be very hard to keep up with a subscription like this, even if it is giving you a little bit every week. If you're getting it from the shops, if you're getting it as a monthly delivery, then okay, you can space it out, but it's a lot harder to bring yourself to spacing the workout and sort of pacing yourself and scheduling yourself. So there's always a downside to these things, and I'm a massive procrastinator. I have been for years. If you saw how many unpainted models I have, hell, I've started to collect models that I haven't even put together yet. Like I've got a couple of box sets that I've had for a couple of years now. I haven't even cracked open and put stuff together yet, or I've put one or two things together. So it is the nature of the hobby. It's a bit of a demon in your mind, and you do feel a bit like a magpie. You see something shiny, you want it. Once you got it, you think, fuck it, I want that next shiny thing. So anyway, I digress. So we're going to have a massive breeze through. We're going to have a look at the stuff I got in January, I think this was. Then we're going to have a look at the stuff I got in February, and then we're going to get to have a look at the stuff that I've received in the March month, and it comes with the second premium War Gear box set, so lots to get through. So let's start with this one. First of all, issue 19. We get Lord Felthius, and we also get his cohorts, which are some Blight Lord Terminators. If you have a look through here, it reads through, tells you a bit about what Lords of Contagions are. So Lords of Contagions are kind of like captains. They're tough leaders or characters who have proven themselves and proven their worth, and they just love to get into the thick of it. They're usually equipped with one of these Plague Reapers or Plague Axe, and it does absolutely nastiness in combat. So, and they also have like nasty auras about them. They're really dirty. So yeah, it goes through what they are and their purpose, how they become what they are. There's a little bit on Lord Felthius himself, so a bit of fluff on who he may be, where he may have come from. The Rockbringer is the flagship on which he travels on, and is the enemy vessel in this narrative that we are playing ourselves through. And we get a bit more on the Blight Lord Terminators, and you find out that they are very nasty and very vicious, and they just love to get into the thick of it, just like their champions, the what they call the Lords of Contagion. So very good for boarding assaults, as well as their armor, which is the Cataphracti armor, which is based on the Horus Heresy era sort of Terminator armor, but it's heavily corrupted by Nurgle's gifts, and essentially they just stomp around. They're very slow, but they're very, very tough. You got your little building section here, so we'll get through that in an episode. And of course, got your painting tips here as well. And then we got our teleport strike. So this is our tutorial mission, teaching you about different ways to deploy during the game, like teleporting, or you've got like other special ways of deploying, a bit like a meteoric descent for your Inceptor, and there's other stealthier ways as well. Got a bit more narrative here on what's going on. So essentially, the last of the Death Guard are getting cornered on the Honor of Ultramar. They're about to get wiped out, and then Lord Felthius is like, screw that, teleports there with a bunch of his Terminator dudes, and they start to fight back. So again, that's a bit more on entering play mid-game, so the special deployment rules. And then we have our data sheets here for Lord of Contagion and the Blight Lord Terminators. So that is that, and then of course we've got a little teaser. You'll see this until the campaign actually starts on Corvan 2. It's exactly the same in each issue, so we don't really need to read that out. And you do get that massive map, which is really good, and it's double-sided as well. So you got one side which is just a regular map, and then the other side is all broken up and stuff. And that's that issue done. So let's just have a quick look at these models. So full of detail, absolutely chock full. I mean, if you have a look at the furs that he's wearing, there's maggots crawling in there. His incense burner is dripping away with stuff, and there's horns everywhere. There's tons of detail on these guys. It's all disgusting, full of tentacles, claws and everything. And I love these little Nurglings. They're just so full of character. And where's the other one? There he is. It's just about to pull the pin on that. Great stuff. So that is issue 19. We get another armoured container to make the set of 3. And in this issue, you get the armoured, the Codex Astartes, and setting up terrain. Okay, so successor chapters. So we have a little breakdown here of some of the successor chapters which were around before the Great Rift opened, and have received reinforcements from the Primaris Marines, and fully fledged again, because a lot of the chapters and successor chapters, they got really battered. Some of them even got completely decimated to a man, and then Rebuke Gilliman goes, you know what, let's bring these chapters back, or let's reinforce these chapters and just fill them up with Primaris. So we got a little bit on the Fulminators and the Black Consoles and the Eagle Warriors and Nova Marines. I mean, as it stands, if you do the white bit with the Rakar flesh that you have at the moment, then you can do them. And with the white consoles, it is just black with a grey dry brush and the gold trims. So you could do that. You could possibly do these guys as well, because you want to do the Rakar flesh underneath to give an off-white before you put on the actual white, once we get that. And the same with these chaps as well. So it is possible to do these colour schemes. This one not so much, because you don't have the yellow, but you could do half of the red if you wanted. These are Howling Griffins, and then you got the Hawk Lords as well. So I like the colour scheme, the old purple and gold, very reminiscent of the Emperor's Children, who are actually traitors at the moment, but they do look good. You could do the Castellans of the Rift. You just wouldn't be able to do the dark green trims until much later. And the same again with the Void Tridents. You could use Rakar flesh for the white areas. You wouldn't be able to do the light blue eyes. And as long as you used enough Agrax Earthshade, you can actually dull down the golds to look more like brass. But anyway, that's another discussion for another day. So these are all successors of the Ultramarines. So they all get their gene seed from Rebuke Gilliman, and they are usually Codex approved. You know, they work with the Codex Astartes, and they work within the parameters, but you do get one or two who sort of like to change things a little bit. Okay, honor badges. So another great bit here to show you what the hell these trinkets are all about. So you got the Marksman's Honor. So something for a warrior who's proven his worth with range combat. And then you've got the Imperial Laurel as well, which can be shown on company standards, and usually it's on like captains and stuff like that to show their rank as well. So they're sort of there for great acts of valor, and of course you wouldn't reach a high rank without great acts of valor in your service. And then of course you got your Prime Helix, so this is for the apothecaries as well. So you got your wings with the crisscross red design. The Crux Terminatus, so these are for veteran Space Marines, and it says that they have the right to wear Terminator armor. Even if they don't actually wear Terminator armor, they'll carry this sign around on them as well. Then you've got the icon of the Death Watch, so every now and then random participants in chapters will be taken out of service and put into a secret service called the Death Watch, which is their main mission is to use stealth and infiltrate possible rebellions and alien infestations and root them out before they take hold. Service studs, they show what's this? These rivets are stamped into the warrior's skull to record 10, 50 or 100 years service, depending on the chapter's traditions. Though described in the codex, the awarding of studs is not officially required, so it shows them how long they've been serving. And you got the iron skull, so this ancient badge is the codex insignia for a sergeant. The skull is traditionally attached to the shoulder or helmet of warriors who have attained this rank. The iron skull is usually displayed as a red heraldic device. So more interesting stuff. And then of course you got purity seals as well. They're like blessings given by a chaplain. So Space Marines, they're kind of like warrior monks in a way. So they have litanies, and they abide by the Codex Astartes like it was the Bible. They've honed themselves and they've lived by that book and the rules set out in the book. So they have litanies from the book pressed onto them as purity seals, and sort of gives them that little extra morale boost. Right, Codex Astartes. So after the Horus Heresy, rebuked Guilliman turned his attentions to ensuring such a tragic event could never occur again. The result of his labour was the Codex Astartes. For over 8,000 years, the Codex Astartes has served the Space Marines as the ultimate guide to waging war. So, before and during the Horus Heresy, you had the legions. There were 20, that became 18 for mysterious reasons, and each one was led by a Primarch. The numbers were not limited, so you could have as many companies and as many squads as you wanted. The only limit was your ability to use them, control them, and supply them. That was it. But then after the Horus Heresy, because there was so much devastation, Rebuke Guilliman was just like, you know what, there's too much power wielded by one legion, so let's break down the chapters, the legions into their chapters, keep them limited to 1,000 warriors with 10 companies, each one with 100 dudes in it. And that's how it started. And that's why you got untold amounts of chapters, no legions for the Imperium, but you have a few major legions still available for the Chaos Space Marines, as well as their little warbats. I think the only ones that don't really follow it specifically is the Space Wolves, because they have 13 great companies, one of which is always sort of aloof, it's not really around. And the Black Templars, who are a successor chapter to the Imperial Fists, they have a loophole where they are continuously on a crusade, and in the Codex Astartes it said that whilst within a crusade they can have unlimited recruits lined up to replace you know, their warriors. So they got hundreds of thousands of troops, well not hundreds of thousands, but they got thousands of troops that are not on the books, that are just acolytes, and they're essentially like, you know, the scouts, and they're just ready to take up a position in a company as a regular Space Marine. So there you go. So here we go, Astartes chapters. So where it says all records expunged from library, the 2nd and 11th legions, these were always just left out just for narrative reasons, but also because it was for, it's a theory, but the Roman numeral for 2 they worried would get mixed up with the number 11, which is of course this one here, so they just got rid of both, so it sort of worked out well. There are some hints to what happened to them in the Horus Heresy books, but nothing solid is ever said out loud. And then of course you've got all the legions here and the homeworlds as well. And when it says excommunicate traitores, this means that they went on the renegade side, they turned their backs on the emperor and they joined Horus in his civil war against the emperor, to claim the Imperium for themselves. And of course now they've all fallen to the Chaos Gods, so that's not cool. Right, so here again we know how to do this, we've done 2 videos on it already, but it's saying paint it red so you can have a nice red one for the Mechanicum. That's cool. And dry brush with Buckner's Glow, sure. Gold trims, silver trim, looks pretty cool, but you have full license to do whatever you wish with that. And then the same old with those, but now because you got the Mephiston red, you can actually paint up the barrels. So you go back with the other barrels, paint them up, and then you've got your whole container set painted. Groovy. Right, Duel of Champions. The hulls of both the Rotbringer and the Honor of Ultramar are riven with battle damage as both ships approach Corvan 2. As the Ultramarines prepare to disengage and launch their counterattack on the planet's surface, the leaders of both forces clash in mortal combat. So as you'll notice straight away, it's blank. You're using the blank side for once. Until now we've been using the terrain side. So see, you got all that stuff, you got all this stuff. Okay, and you'll be alternating the setup of terrain in tutorial 21. So you get to learn about setting up terrain, so you can really mix it up. So we've got a bit more about what's going on with Corvan 2. So the green sphere of Corvan 2 looms large as the Honor of Ultramar and the Rotbringer begin to disengage, deploying transport vessels from the hangar bays. The Death Guard are already swarming over the land masses of the planet, crushing all resistance in their path. Only the might of the Ultramarines can save Corvan 2 from this terrible fate. Right, and a bit more on what an industrial world is, which Corvan 2 is. Essentially it's one big factory planet. So there you go, mystery solved. So we've got a bit more here, setting up your own battlefield. So it walks you through on how to do that, so you take it in turn to put bits and pieces down, but you've got to make sure it's, you know, away from the board edges and the deployment zones and stuff like that. And then you get to choose the deployment zones by doing a roll off, and then you can deploy as described in previous episodes. And then okay, the same little teaser here as the last couple of episodes, last couple of issues. So that's that one. Alright, let's take a break. Right, now we've got issue 21. So exactly the same Reavers as what you got back in issue, what, 3 I think it was. So got those. Got a nice little sample chapter as well, Lords of Silent. It's a very good little read, so worth taking the time. You know, I call it toilet reading, you know, so got that. And then of course you got the mini rules. So it's got all the core rules that you need at your disposal, so you don't have to keep flicking through all the pages. So you use your folder and all the issues as a reference for examples for the rules, but all your rules are here essentially, so that's okay. You get that in the Dark Imperium box as well, so it made sense that they would throw it in. Right, and about Mortarion, Reaver reinforcements, the invasion of Corvan 2 begins. What? The Fangs attack. Okay, so we got a nice little story of a battle by the Space Wolves, and it follows a small band of Reavers that work with them. So I won't spoil anything there, but again, good little read. And then of course we got the names of those characters in that mini story that you can paint these chaps up as if you wish, but you don't have the yellow or the bluey grey, so you can't. But you know, if you do have the paints, go for it. Hellblaster War Gear. Yeah, I know it's a bit long from when you last received them, but never too late to learn more about them. So, heavy plasma incinerator variant of the Hellblaster. So they're slower, more competent, but they pack a bigger punch. So a little bit on that. Here you go, Hellblaster War Gear data file. So heavy plasma incinerator. You have the power pack for that as well, which looks absolutely gnarly. Then you got the plasma incinerator, which is the ones that you have now. You have the assault plasma incinerator, which is another variant. Again, you won't get it in this set. And then the bolt pistol, which everyone has. And we got a little bit on the worlds of the Imperium. So this just goes down, you know, explains that it's a limitless number. It's constantly changing because they're constantly gaining and losing planets because of warp storms, because of civil wars, because of external forces like aliens and heretics and stuff like that. They're always fluctuating, and it's very hard to keep track of it all at any one point. So that's why each area is sort of designated into a segmentum, and these segmentums are designated in smaller sections, and then they have governors and all that sort of thing. So there's a lot of bureaucracy that goes on in order to keep it going. And the Cicatrix Maledictum, the Great Rift, didn't help with that thing, because now you have Imperium Nihilus, which is the half of the Imperium that's stuck on the wrong side of the rift, and that makes things a lot more difficult to keep track of, simply because they can't communicate through the rift, and they can't travel through the rift apart from 1 or 2 places, which are quite dodgy to get through. So there we go. You got a bit on hive wells. So hive wells are usually city wells, mostly there for populations and bureaucratic sort of operations, stuff like that. You got your agri worlds, which are there sort of as a farm planet. Your forge worlds are your sort of factory planets, so they produce the ammunition and the technology and all that sort of stuff. And then you got your chapter planets, so these are the planets that are designated as a home world for a specific chapter, where they draw their new recruits from. So that's cool. And then we have Mortarion, so the Primarch, the Demon Primarch of the Death Guard. We get a bit more on him, so we find out what's driving him. We find out about why he feels so much hate towards the Imperium, and what happened to him as well in his time when the Eye of Terror. So that's what he looked like back as a Primarch. Before his fall, Mortarion was a great general in service to his father, the Emperor of Mankind. His forces were involved in the Great Crusade, helping to free hundreds of worlds. Demonhood. Unfortunately, Mortarion's loyalty did not last. He is now a twisted creature who only wishes to bring death and disease. He aims to destroy everything the Emperor has ever created. So, there's a very twisted figure there. But what drives him is kind of sad, as well as, you know, sort of. He is one of the few that you actually sort of get behind, and then you sort of just go, you know what, screw you, you're a bad guy. So yeah, but he is a really awesome Demon Primarch. And then we get on to building our Reavers, which, you know, is easy enough, should know. Painting them up, so same stuff again, but this time you have got your red and Rakar flesh. So make them look all nice and fancy like that. And now we have Corvan 2. So the Ultramarines have landed on Corvan 2 and intend to stop the Death Guard invasion. Here we explain how the terrain on this map functions in your games. The printed terrain on this map can be moved through, seen through, and fired through. So you got soft cover everywhere, essentially. And all this terrain you will get in future issues, up until issue 30, I believe. So that will all be in your next 10 issues. Well, actually, yeah, next 9 issues. So that's really cool. So this is the back side of the map, where you got all the battle damage and everything on it. Corvan 2 Planetfall. So this is the narrative, the little mission briefing of what's happening on the ships, and also what's happening to the armies and the forces arriving on the planet. And then we've got a little core rule guide here for your reference card, but I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory because it says everything on there anyway. And then we have a mission, so rules. And look, this is mission 1. Okay, so this is not even like tutorial mission or replay mission. This is mission 1. So we're starting to do proper missions now. So you have your armies, and they're bigger armies now because you've got a bigger map to fight over, which is really cool. Your deployment as well, and the victory conditions, and yeah, counter attack. So we get an additional one as well to play through. So this is pretty cool, and you got your different deployment as well. So it's more fun to mix things up. And then of course, again, you've got your stuff here. And then we have a little bit on the Black Library. So that's a nice change as well. And that's that. So in this issue we get Astra Granite, and we also get a medium base paint brush, which I've already been using for ages. It's very handy because you can cover a lot of stuff in almost no time that isn't too big, and at the same time not make too much mess. So boom. Astra Granite, if you are going to put it on the bases, use anything but a brush. It will ruin the brushes. Use like a toothpick, use a coffee stirrer, anything like that. So that's that. Right. Issue 22, so let's wax lyrical this one. What have we got on the front? Battles of the Death Guard, Worlds of the Imperium, learn to base your models. Codex Astartes. The Codex Astartes is not only a manual for the organisation and tactics of the Space Marine chapter, it also contains many pages of guidance written to ensure that the gene seed of various Primarchs is kept as pure as possible so that the new Space Marines can be created safe from taint of chaos. Self-explanatory there. Says a little bit about, you know, what the Horus Heresy did and what it's influenced. There's a couple of failed foundings as well, where they tried to create like a massive batch of chapters, and the gene seed was corrupted in a way by Chaos Forces, so that they either turned renegade or they broke out in nasty mutations and then had to get purged. So yeah, there's a lot going on there. So you got deviations among chapters as well. So even though the Ultramarines are from the gene sire who created the book on what to do, their exception is that they have a massive galactic empire within the massive galactic empire, called the 500 Worlds. But essentially this is just allowed because it's kind of like a backup Imperium, essentially. The Salamanders, because of their the planet, it affected the gene seed in a way, so their skin became darker because one of the glands works in a different way slightly, and the eyes go blood red as well, so that's something different. Iron Hands, they work differently because their mantra is the flesh is weak, so they are all about improving themselves through bionics and replacing what they can when they don't need it with machine parts and stuff like that. So they're a bit weird in that way. They get a hard on from robot pieces essentially. Right, Chronicles of Virulence. So what we've got here: for 10,000 years the Death Guard have mercilessly slaughtered the servants of the false emperor. They have spread plague and sickness across the stars and wear their enemies down with relentless determination. Countless worlds have been infected, armies beyond number have been destroyed or corrupted beneath their advance. They continue to fight the long war in the name of their Primarch Mortarion and almighty Nurgle. Their battle record is long and filled with accounts of terrible deeds. So I love this bit of artwork. It's a very old bit of artwork, and you can tell by how much detail, gruesome detail, is scribbled into there. And yeah, I love it. It's such a bit of nostalgia for me. So M31, so the 31st millennium into damnation. So you got the Horus Heresy kicking off there. During the Horus Heresy, Mortarion and his troops are trapped in the warp and are afflicted by a terrible painful disease that bloats and distorts their bellies. Mortarion sells the souls of his entire legion in exchange for an end to their suffering. Nurgle claims the Death Guard as his own personal army, and the first Plague Marines are created. They emerge from the warp just in time to join the invasion of Terra, beginning a war that will last for thousands of years. So there's that, and then I won't spoil the rest of it, but the rise of the Plague Planet was when they all got defeated at the Siege of Terra. They all ran back to the Eye of Terror, and some of the Primarchs there claimed the planet for their own, and Mortarion claimed one and named it the Plague Planet, and for the fact that it is infested by Nurgle's taint. And then the time between then and now, so they're in a few wars. against their allies or former allies in the Eye of Terror. There's like a massive power struggle between the legions. Right, the Great Crusade. So this is where everything starts for the Imperium, and it's a long story. It's got many ducks, turns and weaves, but essentially some dude appears out of nowhere. Hey, I'm the Emperor. He raises an army of genetically engineered superhumans, unites all the warring factions on the planet of Earth, then goes to Mars, says, hey, do you want to do a pact? And I'll let you keep worshipping this machine god. They're like, hey, yeah, that sounds cool. Boom. Unify the whole solar system. Boom. Spread out through the galaxy, starting to connect all of the fallen empires and lost civilizations of humanity when they went out into the stars at the golden age of technology. And then that was that, really. So you had that, and he used the his lost Primarchs as sort of an excuse, I think, really. So it was like, yeah, I need to go find my sons, and each one's got a legion, so they all fought to find their gene sire. And once they did, some were happy, some were disappointed, but you know, that's that. Long story done. Worlds of the Imperium. So again, we're going through this is what we did in the last episode. So we've got the mining worlds, research stations and fortress worlds, death worlds, which are like absolutely opposed to human life. They're sort of like the worlds that you really don't want to settle on, but if you had to, you have to be like the toughest of the tough. And you got feral worlds, so these are usually very primitive worlds where they're just going around with clubs and axes hacking at each other. Feudal worlds are a bit further along, limited technology, but they do have hierarchies and stuff like that, so they are more compatible with the Imperium on that sort of level. And Exterminatus. So this is sort of the last resort, where if a planet is feared to be totally lost, they will just bomb the heck out of it to destroy it, and that's it. Problem solved then. So it says here, the order to undertake Exterminatus is not one that is given lightly. It calls for the complete eradication of all life on the planet. Such a command can only come from the highest ranks of the Imperium, a Space Marine Chapter Master, Lord High Admiral of the Imperial Navy, Lord Commander of the Astra Militarum, or an Inquisitor. Which Inquisitors use it too much, by the way. But that's another story for another time. Exterminatus takes many forms. The planet may be purged of all life, or it may be destroyed utterly, becoming a debris field. So, brutal amount of destruction there. And if anyone ever goes in that Star Wars versus Warhammer 40,000 debate, and they're like, oh, but they got the Death Star, just go, yeah, well, that's the size of a moon. We could just get a regular ship to blow up a planet. What are you gonna do? So, there you go. Right, we got a bit on how to base. Whatever it says, do not use that base brush. It's not actually for bases, despite it being a base brush. It's there for base coating, using your base paints, okay? Not these texture paints. So use like you can use like anything, just not this. Use an old beat up brush if you need to use a brush. Go to the pound shop and buy like a pack of 5 that you could just chuck away when you're done with. Don't use this. Alright, so it just walks you through that. Very nice. So you're plonking it all down on the base. Does it tell you to do anything else after? It doesn't. I'm very surprised that it doesn't tell you to add Nuln Oil and then dry brush with the grey that you got. What was it? Yeah, the Mechanica standard grey. You could, I mean, it will come out dark, but you could dry brush with this colour. But maybe they're waiting for another issue when they got a lighter grey. Who knows? Right, mission briefing, supply drop. So, going to be fighting over supplies. So you're going to use the armor containers on Overdue, which is cool. So here is your battlefield for seize the supplies. So that's really cool. It looks a lot more like how it does in the books now, so that's great. It's getting you in that frame of mind, so you're getting ready for buying those books and stuff. And setting up your own battlefield, so how you can sort of redo this mission but in a slightly different way. And using additional terrain, so you can spread stuff out, you can use line of sight blocking avenues, you know, so putting the terrain in slightly different ways. So it's got all that information there on how to make the most of that. And then of course we've got our mission briefing here for mission 3. So hang on, we get 2 missions in this episode, in this issue. That's cool. There's a lot packed in here. Defend the spoils of war. So it's a flip side essentially. So the Death Guard are going to be defending their stuff now. So, well, maybe not necessarily the Death Guard, but narratively you could have it as the Death Guard. So there you go. That's that one done. Alright, now to edit all. So yeah, thanks again for joining me. Sorry it was so long since I got round to doing this one. And over the next couple of days I'm going to be throwing out a couple more videos. I still got the February delivery and then this month's delivery, so stay tuned for that.